Permanent residence permit, holy grail for all non-EU citizens wanting to live in the Czech Republic for long term. But why is it so appealing? Why everyone wants to get the permanent residency? What's so special about it? What benefits does it have? How complicated is it to get the permanent residency? What documents do you need? Everything will be covered in this video, so stay tuned. So let's start with who qualifies for the permanent residency. In general, people who qualify are people who, first, have been living here for long enough, second, are earning enough money on monthly basis, and third, speak good enough Czech. What does it mean? Long enough, living here long enough, means in most cases 5 years of continuous legal residence in the Czech Republic. It meaning under a long-term visa, long-term residence permit, stuff like that. In some cases, it can be 2 years. For example, for family members of EU citizens, it's only 2 years. In some cases, it can be up to 10 years because, for example, student stay, if you are a student and have a student residence permit, those years, unfortunately, only count as half. So if you want to reach the 5 years required for the permanent residency, you would need to study for 10 years in total. So in some cases, there are exceptions, shorter, longer, but in general, if you have been here living for 5 years, you can qualify for the permanent residence permit. What does making enough money mean? It basically means that you can prove that you've been making enough money on a monthly basis. How much is enough depends on how many people live in your household. If you live alone, the amount required will be lower than if you live with your partner or your husband, spouse, and maybe even with your kids. So I cannot give you an exact number because there is a special calculation based on how many people live in the household. But in general, it's around, like, let's say 3,500 per person plus accommodation cost, just to give you a rough idea. How you prove it depends on what you do. If you're employed, then you just submit some confirmation from your employer what was your average salary in the last quarter and that you had some valid employment contract. If you run your own business, if you work as a freelancer, you need to submit your last tax return. If your situation is different, you might need to prove it in a different way. And what does speak good enough Czech mean? As of now, which is middle of August 2021, the required level of Czech is A1, which is very basic, nothing too complicated. Starting from the 1st of September 2021, this level will increase to A2 level. So if you want to apply for the permanent residency after 1st of September 2021, you will need to prove that you have at least A2 level of Czech. That's it about who qualifies. And now, 8 benefits of the permanent residency, because people always talk about the benefits, but not everyone exactly knows what the benefits are. So here are 8 benefits of having the permanent residence permit in the Czech Republic. Number 1, no one will ever kick you out. Number 2, the status of permanent resident is unlimited. You just need to renew the card every 5 or 10 years. 3, free access to the Czech labor market. 4, access to the public health insurance. Number 5, you're no longer tied to one purpose of stay. Number 6, you get some additional voting rights. Number 7, it's a required step for obtaining a Czech citizenship. And number 8, it's easier for you to move within the EU. I will now go through all the points in detail. So no one will ever kick you out. What I mean by that is that the permanent resident status is basically permanent, so forever. So unless you revoke it, unless you say I no longer want to live in the Czech Republic, I just got frozen on Facebook. Okay, I'm back, sorry. So unless you say that you no longer want to have the permanent residence in the Czech Republic, the government should not be able to cancel it. Of course, if you did something very serious or I don't know, they could, but in theory, no one will ever kick you out once you have the permanent residency. The status of permanent resident is unlimited. That means that it's forever. You don't need to renew it every year or every two years, as it is with all the long-term residence permits, employee cards, blue cards, business residence permits. So that's another great advantage. You will not have to deal with the MOI that often. So you just need to renew the card every 5 or 10 years, but that's easy. So it's nothing too, not big hassle. Number 3, that's one of the biggest game changers for most of the people, is that you get a free access to the labor market. That means that you can work freely. There are no limitations. Whatever type of visa or residence permit you have now, your working rights are always limited. If you have the employee card, you're tied to one employer. If you want to change it, there is some process behind that. If you are a family member, you, for example, cannot work at all for some time, I mean family reunification. If you're a student, there are some limitations as well. Once you get the permanent residency, you can work freely. If you want to work for 5 employers at the same time, you can do it. If you want to change them every month, you can do it. If you don't want to work at all, you don't have to. So that's a great advantage as well. You also, in addition to that, you also can qualify for some benefits like unemployment benefits and some more. Then you also become part of the public healthcare system. So for some of you, it will not be a big change because, for example, Americans can also contribute to the public healthcare system as long as they have the trade license, the živno. All nationalities can contribute or benefit from the system if they are employed in the Czech Republic. But for those who cannot reach the public healthcare system, this is a huge game changer as well, because once you get the permanent residency, the ministry directly informs the public health insurance office, and you will become part of the public health insurance, which is great. In case you don't know that, if you have the public health insurance, basically everything is covered. Whatever happens, you will be treated for free, kind of. The permanent residency is not tied to any purpose of stay. So you don't need to prove that you have employer or that you study or that you still have some family member living here. It's just, it doesn't have a purpose of stay. It's like something completely different. So you no longer need to prove your purpose of stay in the Czech Republic. You get some additional voting rights. I'm not sure if it's important for too many people, but you can vote. And if you live in the Czech Republic, you want to stay here, might be important for you to be able to vote in various elections. Permanent residency is also one of the required steps to get a Czech citizenship. So if you want to get a Czech citizenship, you need to get the permanent residency because that's one of the requirements. If you don't have a permanent residency, you cannot get a Czech citizenship. And the last thing was that it's easier for you to move within the EU, which means especially if you get a so-called status of long-term residence of the EU, then you can in theory work. With a Czech permanent residence, you can work in some other EU countries. There are some limitations because, for example, you cannot stay in those countries for longer than 90 days. So you could, in theory, work there, but you cannot stay there. So you would still need to get some kind of residence permit in that particular country. But it's definitely way easier for you than without the permanent residency. So that's one of the advantages as well. Now, what documents are needed for the Czech permanent residence permit? Actually, there are not too many. So first, application form. Second, passport and residence permit. 1 passport size photo. Proof of accommodation. Proof of income. Czech language certificate. The administrative fee for the Ministry of the Interior. And that's basically it. So let's go into details right now. Application form, nothing too complicated. If you've been living here for some time, you've been through that many times, the form is not that different. You need to have a valid passport and a valid residence permit, and you need to be able to prove that you've been here for long enough. You need 1 passport size photo, so there's nothing complicated about it either. You need to have a proof of accommodation. That's standard. You've been through that many times if you're already applying for a permanent residency, so that's easy. Proof of income, that's the first tricky one because you need to prove that you're meeting the minimum income requirements, which, as I mentioned before, there is a special calculation on how much you need to be making based on how many people live in your household and how much you maybe pay for the rent. So if you want to know details about this, get in touch. I'll be happy to calculate the exact amount you need to be making, and how you prove it depends on what exactly you do here. So if you are employed, you prove it by documents from your employer, so employment contract, last salary slips, or like confirmation of how much money you made in the last quarter, or stuff like that. If you're a self-employed person, you usually submit your last tax return, so you need to be careful to do the tax return properly. Because if you do it the Czech way, that you deduct 60% of your expenses, of your incomes as your expenses, then you might easily end up not making officially enough for the permanent residency. The Czech language certificate, as mentioned, as of now, in August 2021, the required level of Czech is A1, but this will increase from the 1st of September 2021. So if you apply for the permanent residency after that date, you will unfortunately need to submit or like fulfill this condition of A2 level of English, of Czech. The ministry can issue a free certificate or a certificate for a free try. So if it's your first try to get the certificate of high enough Czech language, you can ask the ministry to provide you a certificate, and you can do the first test for free. If you pass it, everything is good, you get the certification. If you don't pass it, you can try again, but you will need to pay from your own pocket. And then administrative fee for the permanent residency, that's 2,500, and it must be paid. Of course, it cannot be paid in money or by card or cash or whatever. It needs to be paid in the beautiful revenue stamps called kolky. But if you've been here, you know that, and you're familiar with that. That's basically it. Of course, all the documents must be originals, no copies or scans or anything like that. So originals or notarized copies, and all the documents must be fresh. So officially, they should not be older than 180 days. So for example, documents from your work, if you have an employment contract which you signed like 3 years ago, you might need to get some fresher confirmation saying that the employment is still ongoing. Okay, and then 2 important things about applying, or when you're applying for the permanent residency. Number 1, always remember to apply for extension of your current residence permit along with your permanent residence permit application. Why is that? Is that the permanent residence permit is something completely different than any other type of residency. So you usually cannot get a bridging visa if you only apply for the permanent residency. Of course, if you have a valid employee card, for example, which is still valid for 1 more year when you're applying for a permanent residency, you don't need to do anything because you still have like 1 year of validity of the employee card. But if you want to apply for the permanent residency right before your current status expires, current card expires, then you should also apply for extension of it along with your permanent residency to avoid any problems with you staying here illegally, basically, because the bridge visa cannot be issued for the permanent residency. That's number 1. And number 2, be careful about traveling and staying abroad, because there are some rules on how much time you can spend outside of the Czech Republic if you still want to qualify for like the permanent residency in the 5 years or whatever amount of years you need to fulfill based on your status. As I mentioned previously, the student status or the family member of an EU citizen status. So those are 2 important things. I see that I have some viewers, which is great. So thank you for joining. Now it's the time for your questions. If you have any questions, please type them, ask them. I'll answer them right now. Otherwise, this session is over. So I'll give you a couple seconds. So please, if you have any questions, type it in now. Meanwhile, dance for you. Yeah. Doesn't seem like you have any questions. I'll give you a couple more seconds because maybe I'm just not seeing that you're typing. Okay, nice. Thank you. Thank you. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions later on, please feel free to get in touch. Follow me on TikTok, follow me on Instagram, follow me here on YouTube, on Facebook, join the group on Facebook. You will find me everywhere. So please join me. And if you have any questions, okay, here we go. James Kuhn, can I get permanent residency on the basis of retirement? Well, not really, because the thing is that you cannot really get the previous visa based on retirement. Because if you're, let's say, if you're retired and you want to move to the Czech Republic, there is nothing like retirement visa. You will always need to find some official, like, active purpose of your stay, and then you will keep extending visas or residence permits based on that. If you're already retired now, before you moved to the Czech Republic, then it would be very difficult for you to get any type of visa and the permanent residency. If you're already here under some type of visa and then you got retired and you're maybe paid by the Czech system, you might be able to, if your income from the retirement is high enough, you might be able to qualify for the permanent residency if you meet the minimum income requirement. But honestly, I've never done, or we've never done in the company, we've never done permanent residency for someone who was retired. So honestly, I don't think it's really possible, or that it's like easy to do that. Probably would be possible somehow, but we would need to discuss your exact situation in more details. Okay. So thank you very much, guys. Please follow me. If you have any questions, get in touch, email or any social media. I'll be happy to answer all your questions. Okay, thanks. James, if it wasn't clear, or because I maybe didn't understand properly your situation, so please feel free to get in touch, and I'll be happy to discuss with you in person, and we can find a solution for you. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.